This is my beginning algebra course. Today you're going to take test number 4 of the course. If you haven't done the homework completely and correctly from the last class, do that homework before watching this video. I've said it before, I'll say it again. You cannot pass a math exam without doing all the homework that leads up to the exam. Furthermore, doing all the homework that leads up to the exam is not enough. That just gives you the potential to pass the exam. You also have to review all that material by studying for the test 2 or 3 days before you take the test to make sure that you're ready for the test. To prepare properly for the test, you need to go back and do many of the problems. You don't have to do all of them, but you have to do a lot of problems to make sure that you know how to do the problems. The only way to know for sure that you can do them is by doing them. Unfortunately, that takes a lot of work, time, and energy, and most students are not willing to put in that energy and that time, so most students will not perform well on algebra tests unless you force them to study for the test and do all kinds of ridiculous things. If you don't study for the test, if you don't do all the homework that leads up to the test, then all the work that I put in to make this test is just a waste of time, because if you take this test and you fail the test, then that means that the test really did nothing for you. All it did was prove that you don't know the material. And then you'll have to go back and redo hundreds and hundreds of problems in order to make sure that you do know the material, rather than just passing the test first time. So do not take this test unless you're prepared for the test. As you can see, we have the rules for grading your test as usual. I just want to mention a few things. When you take this test and you have a word problem that requires a system of equations, you need to define those variables. You have to tell the reader what A is equal to. A is the number of apples. So I want you to write this just like I wrote it here, or else you're going to lose 1/4 of the points for that particular problem if you don't define variables. Also, when you do graphing problems, I want you to label your axes. I labeled these axes a little bit too big there. Label your axes, X and Y. If you don't do that, you're going to lose 1/4 of the points for that graphing problem. And I want you to label all the points that you use to graph the line, any relevant points. If you don't do that, you're going to lose 1/4 of the points for that problem. And if you don't label your intervals, these are the intervals. If you don't label those lines, then you're going to lose 1/4 of the points for that problem also. These are the intervals. You see I have 8, -8, -6, so on and so forth. You need to label all that. You need to give all that information for the problem, or else you're going to lose a lot of points. Also, there are 2 problems where a calculator might be useful. Most of these problems you don't need a calculator, but you can use a calculator for a couple of these problems if you want to. So that said, you have these guidelines. If you forgot about this stuff, you can look this over. You can have this in front of you when you take the test. The test is going to be fairly challenging. This is beginning algebra. It's a challenging course, and the tests are going to be challenging, so you need to concentrate hard. The test should take between 1 and 2 hours. Clear off your desk. You should have no computer, no internet, no textbooks, no help from anybody, a pencil and a paper, and you need to time yourself. And so here's the test. Let's get screenshots. Get a screenshot of the first 2 pages, and the 3rd and 4th page, and the 5th and 6th page, and the last page. So go ahead and take the test. Pause the video, and when you're done, push play, and we'll talk about how to grade your test. All right, you should be done with your test. Let's look at the answers. Here's the answers. Go ahead and get a screenshot of that. And a screenshot of this. And go ahead and score your paper. Remember, you should have this, the instructions for grading your paper in front of you as you grade the paper. So go ahead and do that, and pause the video. And when you come back, we'll talk about how to interpret your grade. All right, we're back. If you scored 90 to 100, that's an A. That means you know the material really, really well. If you scored 80 to 89, that's a B. That means you know the material, but you have a few minor things that you need to work on. If you scored 70 to 79, that's a C. That means you know the material, but you have some major things that you need to work on. And anything below a 70 means that you don't know the material, and 99% of the time you just didn't do the homework that led up to the test. You didn't do it completely incorrectly, and you didn't study for at least 2 or 3 days before taking the exam to make sure that you knew the material. So if that happened, don't complain to me. You know, I have no control over how you put this information in your mind. It's up to you. So if you passed the exam, I'm proud of you. Good job. We're pretty much done with the course. Now we just have to study for the final exam. We may have one more class. It just depends. I'm not 100% sure, but we're pretty much done with most of the material. If you did not pass, then what you need to do is just do tons and tons of problems, just like the problems I put on the exam. You need to find problems in your textbook, do problems on the internet, just do tons and tons of problems until you're absolutely sure you know how to do these types of problems, because you can't go on. You can't finish this course, and you can't certainly go on to the next course unless you know how to do this material. So all that said, again, if you pass the exam, I'm proud of you. I'll see you in the next class.